What's up YouTube? This is Dennis Panuta for tutorialsEU. In this video, we are going to look at the when expression. So the when expression is similar to the if statements that we have looked at before, but there are some nuances that are different and also the use cases are different. So let's look at how to use it in this video. But before we do, please hit the like button and subscribe button if you haven't done so already. We're uploading regularly amazing Android app development videos. So let's get started. So let's go ahead and use it. And therefore, I'm going to go ahead and, by the way, our IDE already said, hey, why don't you use a when expression here? So when we use this if age so-and-so, it said a better way would be to simply use a when expression or simplify this expression. Of course, I could do that directly here, and the IDE would do everything for me, but I want to build one myself. So I want to build a when expression myself. Therefore, I create a new variable called season, and it's going to be season 3, or I'm going to set the season to 3. And then I have a when expression. So I use this when keyword, then the brackets, and then the variable that I want to look at, because here I specifically look at a variable. Let's say I look at the season, and depending on what the value of season is, I want to execute specific code. So let's say season is 1, then I want to execute the code which just says it's spring. Then if season is 2, I want to execute the code that is going to be summer. So you can see the structure is the value, then an empty space, and then minus greater sign, and afterwards the code that you want to execute. Now, of course, you can also go ahead and execute a multi-line code. So it doesn't have to be a single line code. And here I'm just going to say println fall, or println, or in this case both, println autumn. And then of course we have our final season, which is winter. All right, so println winter. So what is the default case? So the case that should be executed if none of the above is true. So if season is neither 1 nor 2 nor 3 nor 4, well, then we can execute the else block with the else keyword. All right, so here I'm just going to say invalid season. So at least on Earth, we only have 4 seasons. So let's say we were on another planet, maybe there were more seasons, but these are all the seasons that we have. So this is in general how we go about using when expressions. So you have a variable that you look at. It doesn't have to be an integer. It could be a string as well, but we are looking at a variable, and then depending on the value that we have, we execute some code. Now, the cool thing is we can go ahead and do a slightly different approach to this as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and say I have a month instead of a season. So here the month will also be 3, but now when the month is 1, then we, for example, have winter. 2 is also winter, 3 is spring, 4 is spring, 5 is spring, and so forth. So each season has 3 months. So now what we can go ahead and do is we use the when keyword again. In the brackets, we say which variable we want to look at. And then in the curly brackets, that's where our code, our execution code will be, where we check the different states. So let's say I want to execute 3.5. So in those months of 3 to 5, I want to print spring. Then in 6 until 8, I want to print summer. So you see, very similar approach, only that now we're not looking at just one value, but we're looking at a range of values. Here the range is from 6 to 8, and then of course we can also go ahead from 9 to 11. So println fall. All right, but now what do we do with winter? All right, we cannot do something like in 12 ... 2 println winter, because if you hover over it, it says, did you mean to use down to? Because it says this range is empty. Well, we could try down to, but now what it will do is it will go from 12 down to 2, and we had those cases here already. You can see that if you want to go a range down, you can use the keyword down to, but what I want to do is actually have the values 12, 1, and 2. So I can do it like that. I can just say, okay, if those 3 values are true, or if the month is one of those 3 values, then please go ahead and just println winter. And then of course our else case, we can just use the same as we did before. So else println invalid season. And now if we execute that, then we will see it's fall, autumn, and then finally we have spring, because month 3 is March and March will be spring. Alrighty, now a little challenge for you. Please rebuild what we had here, but do it with a when statement or when expression. But don't just use the autocomplete feature here, okay? Alright, so I hope you tried it. So what we need to do is, of course, go ahead and use when age. And now we have the different cases. So let's say somebody is 21 and above. So we can use 21 ... let's say 150, because no one is older than this age. Of course, we need to use the in keyword. So let's say in that range. If the value is in that range, then please just go ahead and print you now may drink in the US. And by drinking, I mean not water, of course. Then in 18 to 20, we can say something like you may vote now. In 16 and 17, and here we don't need to in keyword actually, so let's get rid of those. We can just say you may drive now, and then finally we have an else block which says you're too young. Quick pause. So you're learning something about Android in this video, and I hope you enjoy it. If you want to learn everything that you need to know to become a real Android developer, then definitely check out my Android masterclass, because in this course you're going to build a bunch of great applications along your journey to becoming an Android developer. First, you're going to learn the Kotlin basics. Then you're going to learn to build one app after another. And while you do that, you get a bunch of demos which will really dig deep into the concepts, as well as presentations which will help you to understand what you're learning. So don't miss out and get the course right now. You can find the link in the description below. So this is something that we can of course do, especially the one here at the top. But what if I don't want to write it like that? Because I just want to say if somebody is none of the below, so none of the less than 20 or 20 included. Well, what you can do is you can use this exclamation mark before the in keyword, and you just say, okay, if it's none or not within 0 to 20, then run this expression. So what that will just do is it says, all right, if the person is less than 0, so younger than 0 or older than 20, then execute this code. Alrighty, so now you saw how to use when expressions. Now I want to show you one more thing about when expressions, because we also can use a keyword which is called is. So we have this variable x, let's say, and it's of type any. So I specifically say that it's of type any, which means that it's of type object in other programming languages. So if you know any other programming language, it just means that this is going to be of any type of type. All right, it could be any type. That's pretty much what I'm saying here. And I'm just assigning a value of 13.37. And now I can check x for its type. So I can just say, if it is an integer, then please print something like x is an int. But if it is a double, then please print it's a double. And then of course, if it is a string, println is a string. And finally, we also have this else block here as well, where we say, okay, println x is none of the above. Okay, so this is something that you can also do using this is keyword to check if it is of a certain type. That can be very useful because sometimes you get data and you don't know of what type it is, and then you want to execute code based on the type that the data is, so that the variable is that you're looking at. All right, so if we execute this, we can see that it says 13.37 is a double. Of course it is a double because there is a point or a dot there. So let's say we would add an f here, which makes this a float value. So instead of double, now it's going to be float. Let's see what we get, because it should say is none of the above. So 13.37 is none of the above. So it's neither a double, nor a string, nor an int. While looking at when expressions, you can of course also use not is. So you can say something like not is double, then is not a double. All right, let's run this again just to see if this or else will be executed. And there it says 13.37 is not a double because it is not of type double. It's of another type. But you can also see this is never printed because this statement here is true. X now could be of any type except for int and double for this whole thing to be true. So let's just say we want to make this a string and see if this string here at the bottom will be executed. Let's see. If it says x or x is a string and it says x is not a double. So you see we have the same order here. It goes from top to bottom because this statement here is true. Actually, this one here, this one and that one, so those following ones will never be executed. Even though this is in fact a string because we added the exclamation marks around it. This is a string in fact, but this code will never be executed because one of the above is already executed. All right, so it all follows the same structure as we had when looking at if and else if. All right, so it always goes from top to bottom. So you see, when is just an alternative for if, but sometimes it's more convenient and more precise and dense. And it just reads when x is of certain value or type, then do something. So do whatever is after the arrow.